Our project's about civil rights for women equality. The first event is Women's Strike for Equality, which was a strike which took place in the United States August 26, 1970. It celebrated the 50th anniversary of the passing of the 19th Amendment, which effectively gave American women the right to vote. The rally was sponsored by the National Organization for Women. More than 2,000 women gathered for the protest in New York City throughout the country. At this time, the gathering was the largest on behalf of women in the United States. The strike primarily focused on equal opportunity in the workforce, political rights for women, and social equality in relationships such as marriage, and it also addressed the right to have an abortion and free child care. But these were more controversial positions which more conservative women, including pro-life feminists, generally did not at the time agree with. The next event is Take Back the Night. It was an international event and non-profit organization with the mission of ending sexual relationship and domestic violence in all forms. Hundreds of events are held over 30 countries annually. Events often include marches, rallies, and vigils intended as a protest in direct action against rape and other forms of sexual relationship and domestic violence. In 2001, Take Back the Night was used as the title of a 1977 memorial read by Anne Pride at an anti-violence rally in Pittsburgh. Also, in other countries, it was recently released rape statistics, reactions, and the right to move freely in their communities at day and night without harassment and sexual assault. The Miss America protest was another event that happened. It was a demonstration held at the Miss America 1969 on September 7, 1968. The protest was attended by about 400 feminists and separately by civil rights advocates. The feminist protest, organized by New York radical women, included tossing a collection of symbolic feminine products, pots and false eyelashes, mops, and other items into a Freedom trash can on the Atlantic City boardwalk.
Another protest you can be a part of is the Take Back the Night protest. It was an action created to enable large numbers of women to publicly express anger at sexual violence that goes on and victim blaming that accompanies it. It was originated in Europe in the early 1970s, and the first North American protest was for women held in 1976 in New York. The slogan Take Back the Night was first introduced as a theme for a protest march held in San Francisco in 1978. Also be a part of the Ladies' Home Journal office sit-in. It was at least 100 women who marched into the Ladies' Home Journal office to protest the way the magazine's mostly male staff depicted women's interests. It involved groups such as Media Women, New York Radical Feminists, Now, and Red Stockings. They called on friends, including reporters, film students, and law students, to help with logistics and advice for the day's protest. It lasted around 11 hours, and they presented their demands to Editor-in-Chief John Matt Carter and Senior Editor Lenore Hershey, who was one of the only female members of the editorial staff. They chose this magazine because of its sizable circulation and because one of the members used to work there. The women's magazines were often a target of feminist complaints because their stories often focused on beauty and housework while perpetuating the myths of the patriarchal establishment. They also wanted to protest the domination of the magazines by men and advertisers, who were also mostly men. We included the March on Washington because not only is the character you are playing as an advocate for women's rights, she is also an advocate for African American rights. Another reason we included the March on Washington was because of how women were treated in a rights-based march. The men had their way, they banned women from speaking, but grouped the women to be honored during the march with the wives of the male civil rights leader, directing them to the march together, separately from and behind the men. Coretta Scott King later remembered how unhappy she was at being separated from her husband. "It had been my great wish to march beside him," she wrote, "not from any desire to share the spotlight, but because I wanted the joy of being with him on this special day." Hedgeman did want women to share the spotlight and found these slights a denial of their full humanity. Negro women, like all women, she wrote about the experience, must find ways of securing adequate respect for their work and their potential as fellow members of the human family. During your journey through civil rights movement, you can meet the godmother of the civil rights, Dorothy Height, Or you can meet Jeanette Rankin, who was the first woman to serve in the U.S. Congress. You can also meet Ruth Barnett, who was a good doctor. She performed over 40,000 abortions during her career, and she never lost a patient. You can also meet Coretta Scott King, who was a civil rights activist and the wife of Martin Luther King Jr. And also, let's not forget about Anna Arnold Hedgeman, who served in the cabinet of the New York mayor. She was the first black woman to hold that position. Those are some of the things you can do while looking back on the women's civil rights movement.